Hey everyone, welcome back. In the last video we covered expressions and operators, and today we're going to talk about user input. So far, all of our programs have done the same thing every time they run, and in this video we're going to change that by learning how to get user input, which is essentially when a program pauses and waits for the user to type something. And we see this in the form of this. So anytime you see this, that means it's going to gather user input. And most of the time, we're going to store user input in a variable so that we can use it later. So let's do that. Let's say we want to store someone's name. We would say name equals input, and then inside these parentheses, you're going to write out what you want the question or the prompt to be. So what is your name? And now if we run it, we'll see that in the terminal, it's going to print what is your name, and it's waiting for our response. So all you have to do is type something. So I'm going to type my name, Kylie. And once you hit enter, it'll then finish the rest of the program, and since we have nothing left, that means that everything is done, it's terminated, and there's nothing left. So if you wanted to see how this works with the variable, so that means that my name, Kylie, is being stored in the variable name. So if I want to print my name, let's print my name. Let's click run. Let me type in a random name. And you can see it goes on to the next line after I hit enter, and it prints out the name, which is Abby. Here's another quick way of how you could use that. If you wanted to get someone's age equals input, and then ask them, how old are you? It's also typically recommended that you put a space. It's just formatting, but it doesn't really matter. And then you could print out, and here's another way of how to do string concatenation. You are age, years, old. So let's go ahead and click run. You can see it's fetched the input line, and we're gonna say, let's say we're 20. You are 20 years old. Now, the important thing to recognize is that the input is always going to return a string, even if the user types a number. So let's say I wanted to say this. Num equals input. Enter a number. Oops. And if we did num plus 5, what do we remember from our last video? We remember that we cannot add strings with integers. It's going to cause an error. There's no clear logic that Python has for that. No script. So num is going to be a string. So num is a string, but this 5 here, it's clearly an integer. So what happens when we run it? Well, you're going to notice that we still get the prompt to enter a number because Python hasn't retched this error yet, and so it's going to run its program until it reaches an error or until it finishes. So let's say we want the number to be 10. Look at that. We have an error. Why? Because num is a string. Any kind of variable that you get from input is going to be cast as a string. Of course, an easy way to fix this is to just change it to an integer. And so how do you do that? With the int function. So all you have to do is say that we want to make this right here an integer, and you have to put this whole input statement in there. Int, add your closing parentheses. Now let's click run. Enter number, 10 and it's outputting 15. Because what this int is doing is it is taking that variable, which is a string, and it's reassigning it and saying, okay, we want this to be an integer. But let's see what happens if you enter in words and you try and cast it to an integer. What's going to happen then? So if we say enter in a number, but I type in the letter F, you're going to see that's an issue because this function right here, this int function, it's only going to work if the string is an integer. So in other words, if you type in anything other than an integer, it's going to give you an error. And just for fun, let's see what happens if I type in a float or a decimal. Once again, it's going to give an error because there's nothing written in the logic of Python that is telling it how to handle that transformation. It's not possible, right? You cannot take a letter and convert it into a number. Now, if you wanted it to be a decimal or a float, you would do the same thing that you did for integer, but with a float. And that's why, even though you don't really have to assign data types to your variables, it's useful to know them for little things like this. Let's see now. Enter number, 1.3. There we go. We get 6.3. And I hope that as you get more and more practice with this, you start to realize how the different types of data work together, how the different types of data type interact with each other, and the boundaries and the limitations. So I encourage you to experiment and go beyond what I'm just showing you in the video. Like if you're curious about something, if you're wondering if you can do such and such, like if you're wondering if you can add a float and a string together, try it out yourself, run it, see if it works. Alright, but this is supposed to be a pretty short video, so I'm gonna wrap it up now. And let's put everything together. So we're gonna get a person's name, we're gonna get the year that they were born, and then we're going to use that to calculate their age, and then we're going to print all that information out onto the screen. So let me write that out. So what do we have to do first? I'm going to give you a second to think about it. Alright, so if you're still working it out, make sure to pause the video now, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. So we want their name. So we're going to make a variable called name, and we're going to use our input function, anything with these parentheses right here. It's a function. Now, what do we want to ask them? What is the question that we want to give them? What is your name? Simple. So now we have their name stored in the variable name. Pretty straightforward. Now let's get the year that they were born. So if we want to calculate their age, that means that we're going to want to manipulate their date of birth, the year that they were born in. We're going to want to take that, and we're going to want to take 2025, because that's the current year, and subtract the year that they were born to get their age. Which means we're going to have to cast this as an int, because remember, you can't subtract an integer and a string. They need to be the same. So we're going to say cast this as an int, and then we're going to get our input value, and it's going to say, what year were you born? There we go. And so what you can think about it is the answer that they give you is this entire statement right here, because it's a little confusing to have nested parentheses. But you just want to think about this as like the year 2000, if that's the year that they were born. And you just want to think about this as their name, the string, their name. And so this int is, all it's doing is casting the string 2000 to an int. So int 2000, like that's possible. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But now that we have the year they were born, we want to find out their age. So if it's 2025, we're going to subtract that year, and that should give us our age. So let's print hello, and let's add their name to that, string concatenate, and then on a new line, because Python will automatically add a new line to every print statement, we're going to say we're going to want a space, put in our age variable, because this will work if you want to print out a string and then an integer and a name. However, this will probably give you an issue. And you are blank years old. Let's see if we got the spacing correct. So we run that. What is your name? It's my name. We'll say 2000, even numbers. Hello. Oh, yeah. No, I got the spacing wrong. Okay. So you don't need to add the spacing because the comma's going to take care of that for you. But let's do that again. All right. See, everybody makes some mistakes. Everybody forgets some syntax every now and then. There's no shame in Googling it. So here we have it. It asked what my name is. We entered that. It asked what year I was born in. We said 2000. And here we have the first print statement, hello Kylie, and it's going to say you are 25 years old. Now, time for the challenge. I want you to write a program that asks the user for two numbers, adds them together, and then prints out the result. Very simple. And if you struggle, remember, no shame in searching up the answer, searching up syntax, anything to help you a little bit. This was supposed to be a really short video, so I'm going to end it here. If you don't understand this too much, I wouldn't stress out about it a lot. This is something you should know, but it's not going to show up very often. Alright, and in the next video we're going to do if statements, which should be pretty interesting. So yeah, thanks for watching.